And welcome back. Today we shrink our sensor size and we talk about the Micro Four Thirds camera, which I believe is a first in this channel. Before getting into the review, let me shout Photoluce out. It's the shop that I go to for the vast majority of my brand new photography gear purchases and some of the used ones as well, because it's thanks to them that I was able to test these beautiful, because it's very beautiful, but also full of contradiction, Micro Four Thirds camera. Starting with the body of this camera, as you look at it, you definitely see how beautiful this camera is. I already mentioned it, and there's no way to go around it. It's a beautiful camera. It goes all in on the vintage style, and it does it the right way. It's very, very beautiful to look at. It is weather sealed and it's relatively compact. However, it's a pretty large camera. It's not tall, but it's pretty large. And this has some quirks when it comes to put it in a backpack, because it takes more room than you would expect, despite the camera being relatively small. And it is heavier than it looks, because even if it's shy of 500 grams, the way it is designed, this camera feels heavier than it actually is. And that's mainly because of the lack of a grip over here. The camera being built really well, of course, adds weight to it. And the fact that you don't have a grip that you can hold on to definitely hinders your capability of you shooting this camera one-handed. On top of that, you have this dial over here, we're going to talk about that later, that makes it uncomfortable to put your fingers on. It's really, really weird the way it is positioned, and given the functions of the dial, you could have done a different, they could have chosen a different solution, but however, it is what it is. And so it feels heavier than it actually is, despite having a pretty compact and small lens like this 12-45 f4 Pro, which, by the way, it's a very good lens. It surprised me a lot. As I mentioned, the camera is pretty wide, and when you put it in your backpack, unless you put it flat, and at that point it just takes a little bit more room, but it's nothing. But I usually tend to put my cameras like this sideways, and the vast majority of them fit them in my pretty compact backpacks. This one doesn't. It's very wide, and it pushes against my back, and so what happens is it tilts like this, and it's really uncomfortable to use. It's not a big deal. I'm not complaining about it. It's something you need to know, but it's not really a complaint. When it comes to controls, however, I felt like I was missing some more customizable functions. First of all, I was missing the joystick to move the autofocusing point. That to me is key, especially on a camera on this price, but we're going to get to that later in the video, especially because in order to move the autofocus point, you will then need to use these four buttons over here that you see. And the way I'm using my Fujis, basically, those are all customizable functions, because I have the joystick that allows me to move the focusing point around. Not having the joystick, you lose basically 4 customizable functions, which is a lot. On top of that, you only have 2 dials, and we all know that the exposure is based on a triangle. It's based on ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. Or if you on one of the automatic modes, semi-automatic mode, meaning aperture priority, shutter priority, and all that, you also have the exposure compensation. You may also need the manual if you're using auto ISO. So usually what you need is 3 to 4 ways of having a dial to set those in. With this, you only have 2. So another thing that you have to do, and it's the way I found the camera, actually, the way I set the camera is this function button here at the top. I used it to assign it to the ISO function, and then I will use it in combination with one of the 2 dials to change the ISO. But again, it's a camera that doesn't have a lot of customizable buttons, and I'm losing another one because that's the way I use to change the ISO. So it's a couple of compromises when it comes to the lack of customizable functions that really bother me in the day-to-day use. It's because I'm used to cameras that have all of those controls. And by the way, I feel the same pain when I'm using the Nikon Z7 because it kind of has the same kind of limitation, and it bothers me quite a lot. Especially because there's wasted room, wasted space, wasted dials around the camera. As I mentioned before, also, this dial over here is assigned to some secondary functions. You go to the art filters, you go to monochromatic, you can go to other things that are kind of a toy thing. And given the lack of customizable function and customizable dials, I would have preferred this to be customizable instead of fixed, and I would have preferred to use this as a autofocusing dial, going from autofocus, single autofocus, continuous autofocus, and manual focus, the way I do with my Fujis, for example. And also, the position, as I mentioned, gets kind of in the way. Also, you have another dial here on the top left of the camera that is it's a waste of space. It's a waste of space because you only have 3 positions. It's your photo, video, slow and quick switch. You don't want to give me the autofocus switch? Move these 3 over here in the front and give me this blank dial over here that I can turn around and assign to one of the functions that I'm missing. So I think a couple of things could have been done, could have been used. The real estate of the camera, which is not super small, could have used better. Something else that I noticed, and it's something that, again, for the price, it's kind of a disappointment, is the viewfinder. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's usable, but it's not $2,000 of a camera type of viewfinder. It's decent, no more than that. You get a very good screen. You get the rotation, the typical rotation that you have with the vast majority of cameras. You don't have the full tilt and flip that you get with the Sonys of this world or with the Panasonic of this world. But it's okay. It's not a big deal. It's something that didn't bother me much, and it was usable under the sun. So it's pretty good. And last but not least, while you have on one side you have all the connection and there's plenty of connection, yes, the HMI is the small one, but it's a small camera, so you kind of expect that. You have one SD slot on the other side of the camera. Speaking of image quality, which is pretty important, that's where a lot of people are probably going to be concerned. Oh my God, the Micro Four Thirds sensor is never going to be able to give me what I want. Guys, you're wrong. You're just basically wrong. Whatever you say, whatever you think, just think again. The quality you get out of the sensor, which by the way is a stacked sensor, is pretty good. It's a 20 megapixel sensor that provides you with great colors, very good dynamic range, and surprisingly, very good high ISO performance. I could shoot without even thinking about it up to 3200 ISO, but even 6400 was good. But in a pinch, I could see myself using even 51,200 ISO. It is that good, and I did not expect it to be this good. So yes, it's a 20 megapixel only, and now it's going against higher megapixel camera when you go to APS-C or even full frame, and it's something to be aware of. But also, let's be honest, how many megapixels do we need? Most of the time, we're sharing on social media, we're sharing with friends, we're printing small, we're printing albums for our trips and stuff like that. 20 megapixel is more than enough. And this camera is also capable of doing something that no one else, as far as I know, can do, which is combining shot with this pixel shift, with the sensor shift, into 80 megapixel shot handheld. You can do it with other cameras on a tripod. This one does it handheld, and the few times that I tried, it performed really, really well. So yes, the limitation of the sensor, but not really. Not really. It's a very good sensor with very good performance across the board. The fact that it's stacked, it also allows you to have some crazy performance. You get up to 50 frames per second burst with continuous autofocus and up to 120 with single autofocus, which is crazy fast. Not that I will use it much with the camera like this, but we're gonna get that. We're gonna get to that in a second. And also, you get pretty good video specs because you can get to 4K 60 or 1080 120 frames per second. Now, I didn't shoot many video on this camera, so I'm not going to waste much time. But I find the video to be pretty good. Of course, you need to set it the right way, but it's pretty good. And even the autofocus performed decently good. It's not perfect. It's not Sony-like. It's not the latest Canon. It's not like that. But it's a usable autofocus both in video and in photos. One thing that is crazy, and it goes to the body but also to the image quality, the stabilization you get with this camera is incredible. You basically have 100% hit on shot handheld at 1 second. It handles it pretty well. It's something that I did not expect. And let's just say you're shooting on the inside and you're shooting on a church where there's no people around. It's your travel and you want to do some internal stuff. Thanks to that, you can lower your ISO pretty dramatically and get a pretty good picture. It's just that good. Another thing that Olympus does and others don't is the computational modes. I already discussed about the pixel shift, which has two different functions on a tripod and a handheld. But you also have the ND filter. You also have the gradual ND filters. The ND only works on manual, which makes sense when it comes to exposure. And it came in really handy together with the stabilization because I would shoot a waterfall at 1 second thanks to the electronic ND, because don't get me wrong, it's an electronic one, and the stabilization without adding any lens in the front and without bringing anything else with me. That is innovation, and it's not innovation because this is not just this camera, it's been there since forever, but it's innovation that helps. It's innovation that makes sense. And yes, it's electronic, but who cares? If it works, I don't care. I don't really care. So kudos to Olympus back then, but now OM System for pulling this off because it's a very good help for a photographer. And of course, image quality depends a lot on the lens. And as I mentioned already, this 12-45 turned out being an incredible lens. It's small, it's compact, it's sharp, it's everything you can expect. Of course, when it comes to the sensor size, yes, you will never have a super blurry background, even with the primes. That's kind of a trade-off that you have, but you have smaller lenses. This 12-24 is half the size of the 16-80 that Fuji has, and it's basically the same range with It's not the same range. The Fuji is a little bit more, but same aperture. And this is a very good lens. Not that the Fuji isn't, but this is a very good lens. So there's a couple of trade-offs, but image quality-wise, you cannot complain about this camera. From an overall performance standpoint, I found that the autofocus of this camera, as I already mentioned, is pretty competent in all the aspects. Now, not that I gave it a lot of a run for its money because I was shooting on a vacation, and so that's pretty much an easy scenario. But even when I tried, face recognition was working fine. It didn't miss many shots. It actually missed only a couple of shots, probably because of the way I set the camera. So nothing to complain about that. Video, same thing. It missed. I was trying to vlog for just trying, and it missed me a couple of times, but nothing crazy there. The stabilization, as I meant, is incredible. It's just out of this mind. And I was very surprised about that. The white balance works pretty great. Like when you assign the auto white balance with ambient, it works pretty nice. It always gets you the right amount of warmth in the scene, something that other brands fail to do. Yes, the resolution is low, but you have those computational modes that help you a lot, and they work. Another surprising thing was the battery life. I couldn't kill the battery. I was using it. I just couldn't kill it, which is, again, by itself, pretty incredible considering this is a stacked, stabilized sensor. Usually those things tend to consume energy quite a bit. So very, very, very happy with what they've done with this camera. The rear screen, as I mentioned, is pretty good. It works really well even in pretty bright light. And the camera doesn't overheat. I was hiking a lot, and the camera was on my clip on the backpack. It was under the sun the whole day. Didn't break a sweat. It didn't overheat. It didn't give me any warning. Granted, I wasn't doing anything crazy, but it didn't overheat at all. So again, kudos to M-System for making a camera that it just works, which is what we want from our cameras. And so why I mentioned at the beginning of the video this camera is full of contradictions, because my review up until now has been pretty positive, and it is positive, don't get me wrong. But the contradictions come when you start thinking about the type of sensor that you have, the price, some features, and some choices. This camera cost $2,000, okay, before tariffs. And it's got a stacked sensor. That combination of price and stacked sensor scream professional body. That's, even if it's not professional like a flagship type of body, it's a very high-end body. But you have some subpar features going with this price range. You have a subpar viewfinder. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. I mentioned that already. But for $2,000, I want something bigger, more with more definition, and a little bit brighter. Again, not bad, but it's something that you get on $1,000, $1,200, $1,300 type of cameras. You have a limited set of controls that make you choose what you have at your fingertip rather than giving you plenty of possibilities. That is something a professional or a very high-end enthusiast is going to suffer from, because I'm used to having a lot more control over my settings with all the cameras that I have. You have only one SD card slot. And again, I keep saying that is not dramatic, but the market is going that direction. If you're selling the camera at $2,000, you got to think about that. And only one is going to turn some people away from this camera. You have some kind of a toy features like this dial over here, and at the same time, you have waste of space that could have been used for more functions. You go with a vintage style without a grip. And that, in and of itself, is already a big issue, because if it felt unbalanced with a small lens like this, if you're a high-end enthusiast, if you're a professional, you're going to use some bigger lenses, okay? Because this camera can do it. This camera can, in theory is very good for wildlife. In theory is very good for sports. And those lenses that you're going to use with it are going to be bigger. If it's uncomfortable with such a small lens, it's going to be super uncomfortable with those. Again, you're mixing an old style camera made for travel with some super high-end features and a high-end price. And these things seems not to be perfectly in tune with them. If it was for me, this camera would have had a lower-end sensor, not a bad sensor, but a lower-end sensor. It doesn't need to be stacked. I don't think anyone is going to use this camera to do sports. I don't think anyone is going to use this camera to do wildlife, because the controls, the grip, everything, it's basically telling you go pick the I don't remember, the OM-1 or the OM-1. That is better suited for this. This is a travel camera. This is a street photography camera. It doesn't need a stacked sensor, and you're selling me the sensor at $1,000. This camera with a different sensor, a normal sensor, sold at $1,600 would have had a lot more sense. It would have gone against a much lower end competition, and it would have surpassed that competition thanks to the computational photography stuff, to the weather sealing, thanks to a lot of things. This combination of things, in my opinion, doesn't make too much sense. At the price, of course. If you sell me the same camera $400 less, by all means, give me all the stacked sensor in the world. I'm never going to complain about it, but this is not the case. Despite its contradictions, however, this camera is still a great camera. And if you're into the OM system, Micro Four Thirds system, there's nothing that should take you away from this camera other than the price. If you cannot afford it, you cannot afford it. But if you can, this camera is not going to disappoint you. It's a pretty good camera that delivers big time when it comes to travel photography, street photography, and stuff like that. It makes photography easy. It makes photography fun. And yes, you're not going to have the creamiest of the bokeh, but you're going to have a very good image quality. Let me thank Photolucia again for letting me try this camera. I'm very thankful to them because it's not every day that you can try a camera like this. Let me know in the comments below what do you think. If you've gotten this far, leave me a thumbs up because it helps the algorithm a lot. Ciao, and I'll see you in the next one.